we're like, woo! Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I have a incredibly easy, beginner-friendly beach painting. I'm going to explain this acrylic painting on canvas step by step, totally broken down for beginners. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He's going to help me bring this lesson to you by making sure that the robotic cameras are pointing at or are zoomed at what I'm demonstrating or explaining. We're doing this on a 16 by 20 today, but that's not all. I have a ton of beginner resources. I have free traceables for you to download. I also have step-by-step mini books that are free for you to download as well. So that's a lot of extra help for you to really succeed. This is a good painting if you are new to painting and you're only a few in and you're kind of like, I want to do something fun but real chill today that's got a summer vibe. This wave, shore on the beach up to sand dollars, painted out, is going to be perfect for you. Now, there's nothing for you to do, but totally know that you can do this. Get those paint, get those brushes, come back and meet me at this easel because I'm going to show you how you can paint this at home. So we've got our 16 by 20 surface here. I have the wish on it that the waves in your life be gentle. Just sort of a general wish to the community. On my palette, I'll just let you know where the colors are. This is the phthalo green and phthalo blue. This is the burnt sienna Mars black. These are white, and this is yellow ochre. You can also use yellow oxide. We are going to start out by mixing some colors together. The first colors we're going to mix together are the blue and green. When you mix blue and green together, you get turquoise. You can buy turquoise, for sure. They have it. Southern Ocean Blue from Matisse is my favorite turquoise.
Many paths to a color.
Many paths to a color. But lots of people, Golden has a good turquoise, Sennelier has a good turquoise. So if you don't enjoy mixing turquoise, you don't have to. I'm using an artist knife to thoroughly mix it so I'm not mixing it with my brush. And then what I'm going to take a little bit of my turquoise, just a smidge, over here and mix it into this white, making a lighter turquoise, which makes total sense, right? Mixing it up thoroughly. And you can really see the turquoise in this. It's okay if it has a few streaks in it. You just want to have it mostly thoroughly kind of mixed together. You know, just a couple of nice values. I like to wipe it off from here with paper towels. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to mix a little beach color, which is white and yellow ochre. And then I'm going to do the coolest thing. I'm going to mix the water over sand color, which is the one that always throws people when doing this beach.
Does it?
Yeah, that's the one they miss. So I'm going to take a little of this over towards this. Water over sand color.
Oh.
So it's just kind of slightly green. And that's kind of what we see when it goes from the green through there. So those are the three ranges. I've got a lot of beach. I've got a lot of white. I got my burnt sienna in that. In my first step here, I'm going to draw myself an interesting little wave line. And I'll go ahead and just use Big Bright for that. Let's grab a number 20 Textura. It's a synthetic brush for acrylic. I'm going to get my beach color. And I'm going to come here and make a little fun line. I'm going to come up to the top, just past the halfway point. And I'll wander out. I'll wander back. You want to leave at least a little bit of room for your sand dollars. Your wave doesn't have to be exactly like mine. All right.
But just in case.
But it could be. I might make it kind of go out a little bit. It's sort of interesting. I'm trying to make it interestingly water, right?
Yeah.
Right? When you have that in, it's pretty easy. You're just going to paint your whole beach in with that yellow ochre color we just mixed.
Oh, yeah. That'll be pretty straightforward to do, huh?
Pretty straightforward to do.
Make a sandy beach.
Make a sandy beach with our yellow ochre. We've totally drawn our little beach line. That'll be easy for us to work out. And if you have a hard time with this wiggle, don't worry. When we come in and do the water, it also adds a great wiggle. So you're pretty set on it. You want this to be a solid color. Sometimes we have to paint 2 coats because some of the oxides are transparent. So what we'll do in this step is we will dry it and paint a second coat. We won't make you watch the paint dry, though. That's what we're going to do. We're going to dry it and put on a second coat.
I can say that watching paint dry is a underappreciated pastime.
Is it? It's just one people just don't get. So you can see that there. That's just a little bit streaky. I'm going to dry it. We're through the magic of video, not make you watch me dry it with a hairdryer, and then we'll come back and add the second coat. So we're still painting the sand, and we're going to just give it a second coat. And what you'll find is the second coat deepens this color quite a lot. Certain colors tend to be a little more transparent. So whether you're painting pro or student paint, you're going to want to do 2 coats on them.
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3, and that's okay. You don't need to worry about how many coats it is. You're just worried about the finished result.
You're just adding more complexity.
Right, exactly. A little more complexity to our beach. Look at that. It's kind of relaxing, isn't it? Painting the beach. Being at the beach, painting the beach. This also works as a wall mural, this particular one. All right. We have painted the beach. And you just paint that till you're happy with your sand, but you're just wanting a bit of sand. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you the next part of this painting. So we're going to come in and do the gradient out the ocean. There's a couple things you can do here to make it easier. You can use bigger brushes. This is a very cheap 2-inch brush that you can get at craft stores. This is a very nice little, also kind of in the same range, 2-inch brush that you can find places. It really doesn't matter which one you use. You just want something that doesn't make you work so hard, right, to get the transition. So I'm going to come here and start with my, you could use the same bright brush all the way through if you wanted to, if it gave you better control. You know, I might add a little white to this. Maybe a little more sand color, just kind of adjusting it, you know?
Yeah.
Come in on the edge. We have white paint here, so you don't have to be perfect. I'm going to dip my brush in a little bit of water. I'm sometimes hard on the edges of these canvases, you know. But again, we know that we've got a lot of white seafoam. And come through and kind of blend in some sand here. See how I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Making it more interesting under the water.
It's very drum-like, your surface there.
My surface is very drum-like. This particular canvas line is a really nice canvas line. I'm actually liking it quite a lot. It's the Art Alternatives. And I'm liking it. Maybe a little more watercolor here. Now I'm trying to move quickly enough so that my paint isn't too dry, right? Get a little water on my brush. Come into this blue paint. Kind of blend this blue into that blue-green. Now, sometimes the first layer of the surface you have doesn't blend well. Paint blends better when it's wet into wet, which means the two edges of the paint that you're blending are wet. That's the only reason I'm working even as quick as I am. I'm just making sure, and I'm going to come in and get a little water here to make sure that this edge of my paint is wet so that I can go into my darker turquoise. All right. And we'll just come here, darker turquoise, right here. Not worried too much about brush directionality yet, but I will in a minute. Pretty fast.
You're moving pretty fast there.
Yeah, I'm moving pretty fast here. Absolutely.
Is that part of the technique to make this?
Yeah, there's a little bit of speed because your acrylic paint is drying on you, right?
Is there anything you could do if you needed more time?
There is. I would use a product called Golden Glazing Liquid. This gloss one by Golden Artist Colors. It slows down the drying time of your paint, and it's pretty beginner friendly. Doesn't mess you up too much. I actually rather like it. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to definitely blend two edges together. Blending, blending, blending. Coming right there. Things are great. So we're getting that transition, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are.
We are. Now, sometimes I do have to kind of dampen the brush and blend, blend, blend. Blendy, blendy, blend.
Wow, that ocean just looks deep all of a sudden.
Yeah, it really does. It goes boom, and then it's like deep, and it's actually not too challenging to get it there. And then if you want to kind of like, have a little of this go back, and so you don't have like stripes, you can do that, right? Because now you've got little halftones. Back with your darker color. It's just about working it back and forth. There we go. Some more paint on the brush always helps. All right. Blending, 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 blend. Just want it to be soft. When I want to blend, I often also soften my edges, which means I lift the pressure up on my brush. There we go. And I'm coming around, just going over. All right. So there we go. Worked quickly. Got a nice little ombre. That takes a minute to learn how to do. If you get stripes, dry it, and then try the technique over it, because you're only going to get deeper, richer water as you do this. So it's only going to get better. So you dry it thoroughly and then try the blend again. And a lot of times your canvases are thirsty, so they might not be taking the paint in the way that lets you blend. And 2 coats sometimes gives you what you need to get it blended there. Rinse your brushes out thoroughly, because you don't want to lay paint on them. And we will come back and I will show you the next step. So now I'm going to do a little cool thing with my beach. I'm going to take another very inexpensive brush. I bet John's wondering why we're using our most inexpensive brushes today.
What kind? It's just a.
This is an Art Minds 2-inch brush. I mean, it was like a couple bucks in the pack.
It's a budget brush.
It is a budget brush. Both brushes I've used so far, budget brushes, except for the Raphael. Now I'm going to make a very light sand color on this brush. This is a kind of like a chip brush they use in chalk paint, I think. It's probably in the chalk painting part of the store. And I'm going to just dry brush over all of this a second sand color.
Oh, Giving it a little complexity there.
Yeah, well, just because we're new painters doesn't mean we can't do a little complexity.
Oh wow, I really like that. That like makes it look a little like the sun's been on that beach a little bit.
Well, it really does. And I'm dry brushing. Notice that my brush isn't particularly wet.
You could be doing all kinds of things on that beach. You could be playing volleyball, going fishing, building sandcastles, squishing your toes in the surf,
Squishing toes in the surf is always a good idea.
running away from sharks.
It's okay if you're a little bit on the edge here because, again, remember you're going to have seafoam. Not deep into it, but a little bit isn't going to hurt you, and you're just trying to create a rough, sandy, diffused surface with your dry brush. Look at this brush. It's not wet. I barely got it wet. And I'm using this rough chip brush. It's an inexpensive chalk painting brush because it's rough. Notice it also, for something that was a couple bucks, I pre-rinse all my brushes so all the little loose hairs come out. And so I don't have any shedding off of this. There we go. Look at that. That'll
You know how there's best dressed brushes?
Mm-hmm. Now
This
I'm
might
coming
be
back
the
with
business casual brush.
this is business casual, and I'm coming back with some sand color again, the original. Just picking up that paint, using it up, enjoying it, making diffused, rough textures. It's rough, isn't it?
It's casual.
That's a little lighter than I want. If you get a color lighter than you want, you come back with the other beach color. There we go. Yay! That's all we're doing there. When you
That
come
looks
back, I'll
nice.
show you the next step. So I'm going to show you a fun and easy trick for Seafoam. I'm going to put out a little more white paint on my palette because I'm kind of going through it pretty quickly. And I know I'm going to need a little more.
It's always easier to put out more than try to put it back in the tube.
Don't put it back in the tube. Because look how dirty it is. I'm going to take a fan brush. This is a small fan brush. It's made with hog bristles. There's lots of companies that make fan brushes with hog bristles. You don't need an expensive one. And I'm going to load up my little fan brush on both sides. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come along the wave and tap.
Ooh. I'm going to look over your left
Okay, I'm going to get
shoulder.
back.
It's okay.
Now,
You're doing great. I can see it.
Actually, if I want to curve in this way, I'll curve it that way. And then if I want to curve out, I'll go like that. So I'm handle towards me. And then when it's an inward curve, I just flip the brush over. And we're just making a little edge, little foamy edge. Right?
Yeah,
That's pretty fun.
pretty cool.
Small, little bit wet, not like a lot wet. Making little curve strokes. See that curve? And then I switch. You swirl, switch. You guys like that?
Yeah.
All right. You guys are doing good. This is your first painting, and you're like, whoa, a couple of things are getting to me. Man, just do the beginner acrylic painting course. It's free. You'll be so ready for all these techniques. You'll be like, I could beach anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be new, man. It's all right. Being a beginner is wonderful. All right, see, we're coming back, making another little foamy row.
One of the good things about this particular painting
Mm-hmm.
is there aren't very many larger paintings for beginners.
Yeah.
And this is a really good opportunity to work on some of your larger brush stroke work and your larger blending surfaces.
It really is.
So, it's a lot of times these paintings are broken down for you guys to be lessons. So, build skills.
Build skills. All right, let me re-explain it because I kind of didn't teach it.
I'm sorry, I was talking. All right,
So we're
what'd
going
you
to come
teach?
here and we're going to be pulling back. I'm going to leave a couple inches between that front wave. All right, come back, little pull. Notice we're skipping back. We're not going to go too far back, but we've got to go back a little bit, right?
These are sort of overhead wave shots, so it's
Well, yeah, like you're looking down. This would be you are looking down at this section of the beach. So we're up close on a small wave.
yeah.
It's not an aerial view, though this is a similar technique to how we do an aerial view of a wave. If I just painted little umbrellas and made teeny tiny people, then it would be an aerial view of the beach. It's not that hard.
Waves pretty much are the same when they get teeny tiny as they're gigantic.
Let's make a little bit of a bit of foam here.
Not fully.
Sometimes I like to, just make little bits of foam. Maybe that's a little heavier right here. That's okay. All right, and we've got that nice front edge and a little bit of foam. We made a little bit of foam, John.
That's cool.
It is cool, right? When we come back, I'm going to show you the most important step of the wave. So the biggest thing, whether you're painting a hyper-realistic, super detailed wave or a loose and abstract wave or a beginner wave, the biggest detail that you can add that'll make your wave look better is the shadow at the front of the wave. I'm going to take this is a hog brush. This is a number 12 Raphael d'Artagnan brush. It's hog brush, which means that the bristles are made of pig bristles, right? Hog bristles. And so that makes it nice and kind of scratchy. I'm going to come here to the front of my wave, and I've mixed a little bit of burnt sienna, just a small amount of burnt sienna and black here, and my brush is pretty watery. Look how thin that is. So this is a thin application. Thin, thin, thin. It's not thick. We're not doing a black line. We're doing kind of a glaze. Normally we don't do this watery effect, but for this, it's perfect. And if you do thin watery effects with acrylic, let me give you a pro tip. Do you think they want a pro tip, John? So it can take these types of watery effects a minute to bind or settle. So you may need to let the painting dry for a few days before you varnish if you're going to varnish. You don't have to varnish, but if that is something that you really feel like you want to do, and you do thin applications of paint, you may need to give it a little more time to bond and cure. Or you can get underbinding.
Varnishing really isn't suggested for beginners anyway.
No, I always worry when beginners varnish because that's like where you work really hard on your painting and then this one last little thing can kind of mess up your painting. And acrylic doesn't really have to be varnished.
Yeah, it's a much more advanced need when you're like matching sheens.
That's right. That's what it's for, is matching sheens. And also protecting and beautifying. It does kind of, improve some UV protection. But look at that. Look at what that little bit of shadow on our wave does. And I'm getting a kind of diffuse thing by, kind of blending, glazing it out and scumbling it out. And that also kind of, makes it feel like sometimes it's hard to get enough color. There we go. There, that's really nice. Okay. What a big difference that makes on our wave, isn't it?
Really is.
It's just one of those crazy fun things that you can do. We'll come back. We're going to do a couple sand dollars. So we're going to do a couple sand dollars, and I'm going to use a cup to make that easy. I want a cup that has a bigger opening and a smaller bottom. I'm going to take the bigger opening, and I'm going to put it about, I think, here on my canvas, and I'm using a watercolor pencil. You could use chalk, too. I just want a line that I can see, and I'm going to draw around the top enough. This is just going to help me paint a better circle, because my circles can kind of be squishy. So I just have a little light line that shows me the circle here. And then I'm going to come down and maybe back a little bit, right? Off center. But next to it, make another little small circle.
And you cleverly use the other end of the cup to make a different size circle.
And that's why I like a cup with two sizes. Right? And so now I've got the big and the small. That's pretty fun, right? So I've drawn around that. And the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to kind of paint them in with the base color. And I'll go ahead and use a Simply Simmons #8 filbert. We were using it for Acrylic April. So if you paint with me, you probably have one on hand. And I'm going to take my white over to my brown gray kind of color that I had here, my Mars black and my burnt sienna, and make an off-white color. Paint in my circle. I like to make an off-white color so I have room to highlight.
Ah. You're painting it radially.
That's right. I'm painting in... Boy, man, I wonder... Like, must forget to say stuff. I think that's like I get so in the zone. That's right. We're going to be making circles that are... they're going to kind of go around in brush strokes that are circular. Whereas John pointed out, radially.
I'm just sort of being Captain Obvious.
Sometimes you need that, though. Sometimes you get so into the zone of painting, I'm coming on the edge or toe of my brush to help myself have a nice, clean edge.
Look, you're holding a brush. Another obvious thing.
Another obvious thing. But sometimes, you get into painting and you're just in that zone.
Now, you're getting some paint loaded up on your brush there a couple different ways.
How do you mean?
Well, like you're working some paint into the body of the belly.
Yes,
belly?
I'm working paint and I'm doing the pull and pull and pull, and it loads up the paint.
Because that's a lot of people are like, how do you have the infinite brush?
Yeah, I load really well. A load is really a kind of, you want to get a drop of water, not 2 or 3, but like a drop, and a little bit of your paint, and you work it out from the edges so you have good paint management, and then you pull it into the belly, and you can kind of see when it's in the belly because the belly will be full. And then when you brush, it will come off in a nice application. If you're using fluid paint or craft bottle paint, you don't need to do the water as much to thin or modify it because it's kind of already there. But if you're using heavy bodied tube paint and you're trying to get smooth application, that is a really good idea.
But that is why it looks like her brush holds a gallon of paint.
That's why it does. I get that comment a lot, like, is this brush magic? I try to use cheap brushes, expensive brushes. I try to show you that it's really, the technique is in you. The brush is magic a little bit, but really the big magic's in you. All right, let's rinse that brush out. And to really do this next part, the sand dollars, I'd like them to be dry. So let's dry them and come back, and I'll show you what's next. So I want you to know at home, if you're doing this, you're doing a really good thing. You're taking some time for your creativity, and I promise you, no matter what you're feeling right now, you're doing better than you think. If you need any help or you have any questions, remember to put those comments in the... Everyone else uses their comments for metrics and growth, but actually I use mine to answer questions. So if you have a question, leave a comment, come by the group, post your painting that you're doing with me, ask a question. There's a lot of support here. You're really not painting alone. You guys ready to finish up these sand dollars?
I'm ready.
John's ready. I don't know if he's really ready, but we'll see.
All
like
right. The doolars.
So I'm going to take a round brush. This is a number 4 round for my Art Sherpa line. These are kind of hard to find right now. And whenever you watch this, you may not be able to find this exact brush, but just what you want is a round with a point. Right? That's all you're trying to do. And I'm going to load up on my white paint, and hopefully, it's barely white enough to show, but I think you guys will be able to see it. So I want to leave about 1 inch at the bottom of the sand dollar. All right, so let's make a point right there, just to make sure we don't make our dollar too big. And I'm going to make a little diamond shape. And you should be able to see that because it's like a little bit wider than the background. Okay. Then coming off this side, a slightly smaller little diamond shape. To the side too. And then there's 2 downwards. I had to prove to my son that this was a real thing. Huh. He thought I was up to something else entirely. It was pretty funny, right? So we've got that one there. Let's do this down here too. Let's come up a little bit, maybe not quite as far. I don't have to be up as far as I was before, but I still need to be up enough because the flower part of the sand dollar is a little bit further back to one side. See, I'm just brushing back two little diamond shapes, right? Here, a diamond shape. It's not bad, is it?
No.
Just get that in, and there you are. Now I'm going to rinse this brush out and put it to the side for a second. Well, actually, what I'll do is I will kind of wipe this out. I'm going to get a little of my black and brown again. A little thicker on the application this time. Right, kind of a gray. And I can kind of come around this with that line.
Just a little contrast line there.
Just a little contrast line to help you see the flower.
Okay.
I'm also going to come here with a little bit of this kind of brown gray color on my brush, and I will maybe kind of notch up some little ribs. I'm going to be dry brushing here, so a lot of these get blended in. I just want to put them on the back end. Ooh, we're doing good, right?
Really are.
Little sand dollars. Just doing a little sand dollar in. Now this should be pretty dry by now. So if you remember, we had a hog brush from earlier. I'm going to go ahead and dry brush on a little bit of white onto the sand dollar. So my brush doesn't have extra water in it. I'm going to come around the front and carefully around the petals and kind of rough dry brush a little bit of white. I might dry brush back into my little riblets.
Just to soften them a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to. Soften the riblets. They're definitely there. They're just, you know,
subtle.
A little more subtle. You can leave them graphic if you want to as well. Now they're not blending away for me because they're dry. I may even come back with a little bit of gray and kind of even go back over this a little bit.
Give this layering?
Yeah, I think so. Just a little bit of extra detailing. All right. Wipe out my brush. A little more white here. That next. If it's dry, I can do another layer of dry brushing, see? Kind of create a big highlight. It's a lot of fun to paint these little dudes. I'm going to get my round brush, my number 4 round, and I'm going to load a little of the black and brown on the toe. And put in the little dots that they also tend to have. So you've got your little sand dollar shape and your dots. We come back, I'm going to show you how to get them to make sit on top of the sand and make them a little more like woo. Woo, woo, woo. So the secret to making the sand dollars look really good on the sand, or really any object you put on the sand, is pretty much the same one you did with the wave. So
I thought you promised woo.
It's woo. I feel woo about it. You should feel woo about it too.
Well,
so
you just said you were going to teach us how to put some woo in it.
That's the woo.
Oh.
So you judge my woo so harshly.
I'm not judging the woo.
I'm going to come around with the glaze again.
I'm enthusiastically wooing.
Right around the sand dollar to kind of show a little bit of a shadow.
I woo you.
Now here's a little trick. My shadow is thinner on the left side and kind of goes out a little bit on the right.
Is that because the sun
And that's why we see it on the wave. It's just creating that kind of little shadow. It's just a little bit coming in that way.
It's a matchy shadow.
Press down harder, thicken out that shadow, then it back up to the front. Now sometimes I can even come in with like a little bit darker at the edge here. Right? Subtle stuff. Oops, that wasn't subtle.
What's that?
That was a boo-boo.
Oh,
yeah. Sometimes you boo-boo stuff. You just make a mark you didn't mean to make. Right, darkening that up. Now, if it's thick, what I've got to do is I've got to kind of trim it out and blend it out. You could also do it with a Q-tip. Sometimes I come in with my finger. This is just my hog brush with a little bit of water on it. Just sort of diffusing it out there. Come back. Make sure I got a little bit of shadow here. This one's a little better on the thin line. Let's see how we did. Oh, look at them. Now they're sitting on the beach. Just chill. Chill, happy painting.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to sign it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I'm just going to use my dark brown color, and I'm going to sign it with my number 4 round. I'm just going to come in on the corner. I don't sign in big, crazy colors or with big signature. That's really because I work pretty hard on my paintings, and I don't want my signature to mess them up. That's just my preference. Hopefully yours is to sign it, be proud of it, and hang it on your wall. I hope this was a lot of fun. I have an old lesson like from 7 years ago that's very similar to this. So if this was fun and you want to do starfish or a different technique or something, that might be a lot of fun for you. John, you have anything else to say to the crew for being so brave? Woohoo!
You put some woohoo in it.
Woohoo! You did it! You're amazing. Seriously, you're amazing. You stopped and you took some time to be imaginative and creative. And that's important stuff because we can't solve problems if we can't imagine a different outcome. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye. A little more like, woo!